What's up, guys? It's Ben 10,000 Joe, your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero, and today we're kicking some Sky Striker ass. Stick around. Alright, so today's video, guys, I'm going to give you guys another discussion video. As you guys know, probably know at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty late to this, the 200th YCS was won and taken by Sky Strikers. Now, the first thing that I'm going to let you guys know is I have the deck on my computer right now. I can see it, and it's all in glory. Or for most of us who don't play Sky Strikers, our own misery. So you're welcome. I'm torturing myself so you guys don't have to stare at it. Unless you want to. You know. I got you, masochist out there. I got you. Anyway, guys, the point is, the reason why I'm talking about this deck today is I'm going to talk to you about how to beat the Sky Striker deck, essentially. I know a long time ago, you guys saw my anti-Sky Striker Lightsworn deck, which is basically just Naturia spam in a Lightsworn deck, essentially. However, I'm going to talk about why this guy's particular Sky Striker deck is actually different from what we're kind of used to. So a lot of these decks, you know, used to be all about extra linking, right? Making that big O U shape and watching all of us go.
Wanna see a dragon, huh? I'm gonna show you what an angry one looks like. Let's see you try to pull that little vanishing act again, Four Eyes. My senses are sharper now than they've ever been. And I got so much power running through me, I just might explode.
Essentially, all of us just wanted to instantly gouge the eyes out of our opponent.
Oh my god, no!
That might be a bit of an extreme, shall we say, emotion, but we'll just go with that as an example. I am not bitter. You're watching, Steven. I am not bitter. Anyway, so first things first, I want to tell you about this deck is, if you guys can see the deck profile, you'll notice that he's definitely prepared for some of the stuff that he's going to come up against. So this is what I've been talking about. Like, he's playing cards like Infinite Impermanence, he's playing Solemn Strike, he's playing the new Tornado card. I can't remember the name of it for the one. Double Tornado, I believe is what.
6.5 hours later.
Heavy Storm Duster is the name of the trap card. That was driving me batty. Sorry, guys, I had to go take a look at it. He's playing the Heavy Storm Duster. Like I say, he's playing the Strikes. He's playing the Impermanence. He's got Veiler. He's playing all the hand traps. Essentially, he is basically prepared for the cards that will be mainly used to stop this guy. He's mainly prepared for things like Anti-Spell Fragrance, Naturia Beast, and Sacred Village of the Spellcasters, because those are the most likely sides that he's going to come across. So this guy actually did a brilliant job in the deck building itself to be prepared to compensate for the deck's personal weaknesses. Now, obviously, if he gets a Naturia Beast early enough and doesn't draw the right hand trap to stop it, or, you know, or loses too much advantage to get to the strike and to make it worth it, you know, obviously he still loses to some of those cards, or a properly timed, you know, Anti-Spell Fragrance can slow this guy down, etc., etc. There's a number of ways that this guy could have got around that stuff. But the point in telling you all this is it's a very well-constructed deck, so you're going to have to think outside the box on how you fight it. So one of the cards that you're going to want to think about using is, and I think that if I recall correctly, Team Samurai X, Sam from Team Samurai X is actually the guy I credit for this, because I heard he's the guy who came up with this. You're going to want to think about DD Crow. Called by the Grave is good. It's going to let you get rid of certain cards, but this guy was also prepared with a Ghost Spell. Essentially, he was prepared to side that in to say F you to Called by the Grave. Now, that will do the same thing to DD Crow, but here's where the advantage comes in. You get 2 Called by the Grave, and you got two, maybe 3 DD Crow. He's only going to be able to stop 3 out of the 5. So, assuming you were maxing on it, so to speak, you actually have a chance to kind of take it back from him through that kind of card. Another thing that you might want to think about is just having cards that have the ability to say, I can't be targeted. Yazi of the Yang Zing, or whatever, the evil Yang Zing, Yazi. I'll throw a picture of it up there. You guys will know what I'm talking about. That comes to mind. It's a card that can't be targeted, therefore it makes it really hard for this deck to get around that. The other thing that you guys have to think about is cards that have trouble being destroyed by card effects. So for example, if you're playing, and this is mostly advice for non-meta players, because I know that the vast majority of my audience is casual players. So my goal is to give you guys the tools to give you a better chance at beating these really stupidly powerful decks. I know from experience that these decks can just steamroll you right over. I mean, to quote Bandit Keith from the original Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'm gonna steamroll your life points.
Plenty more machine monsters all revved up and ready to totally steamroll your life points.
However it is he talks. America! Sorry. Essentially, you know, the Sky Striker deck can really do that and just game over. I win. Especially if you are not prepared for it. So another way you're going to want to think about this is cards like Trishula, Dragon the Ice Barrier. You can get rid of the Sky Striker you're staring at, get rid of the actual Sky Striker monster in the graveyard, and then your opponent has to rely on maybe the token to keep making monsters, or they have to get lucky and draw it. And being as most of their monsters lineup is it's mostly hand traps, you know, this guy literally only has, if you want to count the 3 Sky Striker monsters, the Phantoms of the Sky Blaster Phantom. Yeah. Phantom Sky Blaster. I speak English, I swear. It's only my 38th language. Essentially, if you want to count that, so, and then let's just go ahead and say the token generating Sky Striker spell. I'm not going to go looking for the name right off the top of my head. Essentially, if you get those out, he only has 6 monsters in his entire deck that he can actually play. So, that's the good news. Essentially, if you have monsters that are kind of back row, I want to say retardant, like flame retardant.
I'm fireproof. You're not.
So to speak. If you play monsters that are, back row retardant, you'll be able to fight through and overpower this guy. For example, the Blue Eyes deck is a prime example because they have Return of the Dragon Lords, they have Goliath, they have ways to kind of stand up to this. And with Ash Blossom being, this guy's only playing 2 Ash Blossom, and he wasn't playing Droll and Lockbird at all, not even in the sideboard. So if you were playing something like, say, Dark Magician or Blue Eyes as a non-meta deck versus a meta deck here, because remember guys, it's for the casuals, you actually are not likely to get disrupted by Ash Blossom. Now, he was playing Shared Ride, so he's going to draw cards too, potentially speaking. But you could just stop. You know what I mean? It's basically like Max C. You could get your search, okay, he drew 1 card, and you could stop. And then proceed to go next round. Essentially, but you're not being stunted. Or if you can OTK him, if you can throw enough firepower to blast past him, it's the same argument for Max C, really. It's all about, can I go ahead and take this game right now versus if I can't. If I can't, I'll just stop. If I can, I'll just go ahead and... I don't care if you have 1,000 cards in your hand if I already have, twice the much damage that you can defend from. You know what I mean? So... And the Sky Blaster, the Phantom Sky Blaster, allowed him to go to his other Link monsters, like his Boral Sword and all that stuff, which also doubled as his Ghost Spell targets, or Ghost Reaper targets, excuse me. The point I'm trying to make is, this particular build was brilliantly made. This person was prepared to fight the decks that were typically ready to fight his deck. And that was very well built, and that's why I'm talking about it to you guys, because I think that together, you guys can also help me point out the holes in his things. Like, for example, I see that he has a lot of back row, so obviously floodgates like back row hate, excuse me. So floodgates like anti-spell fragrance, they're going to be effective, but they weren't going to be as effective against him. He was definitely prepared for that. I have to give the guy props. He brilliantly built the deck and compensated for his weaknesses. But like every deck is, in Yu-Gi-Oh, none of them are invincible. All of them have a weakness or an Achilles heel, so to speak. So the point is to find that Achilles heel. So in summary, you're still going to want the Naturia Beast. You're still going to want the, you're still going to want to try things like Anti-Spell Fragrance. And if you're playing a Spellcaster deck, the Sacred Village of the Spellcasters. You still want to try those cards. Not that I want to necessarily promote this, but Altergeist decks can clearly play in the Sacred Village. Not that I want people to play that deck. It annoys me to no end, that deck. It's not because it's powerful. It's because it's annoying. It's like no matter how many times I punch that deck, they don't die.
Die! Die! Why won't you die? Why won't you die?
Getting off topic. So the other card I want to throw out there to stop this is DD Crow, and also, like I mentioned, Yazi. I don't really think there's a lot on my mind, and I don't mean Yazi specifically, I mean cards like Yazi that can't be targeted. I mean, another thing you could try to fight this deck really is stun. If you could play a stun deck that's very powerful, you could still blow this deck down exponentially because your monsters will be hard to get rid of. Your back row will be specifically made to protect your monsters, making them hard to target or destroy or remove from the game. Also playing things like Banisher of the Radiance. If you're playing an anti-meta based deck, that, or cards like Macros Cosmos, these kinds of, or Dark Law if you're playing heroes, will also give you a slight edge because some of these hand traps have to hit the grave, and some of these spells have to hit the grave in order to get them back and recycle and continue plays. Now, obviously, none of this is the definitive, this will stop this deck. All I'm saying is that these cards will give your deck an advantage. So perhaps your strategy may be able to outpower his if you're playing a non-meta deck. In conclusion, I hope you guys like what I'm saying. If you want to see more of these kind of videos where I try to explain how to beat meta decks while not playing them, please let me know what you think in the comments below. If there's a card that can really hurt this deck that I'm not thinking about, please leave that in the comments below. Before I hightail it out of here, I'm going to leave up a picture of the deck itself, so that will be the last thing you guys see when this video ends. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. Make sure you liked the video if you liked it. If you didn't like it, leave me a comment below and explain why. Maybe you can teach me something. And if there's anything else you think you want to see, I can improve on, decks you want to see, etc., also leave that in the comments below. I am Ben 10,000 Wajo, your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero, and I'm signing off. Peace, guys.